Exercise Strong Resolve 95, the largest scale NATO exercise since the fall of the Berlin Wall, was conducted during the period from the 18th of February to the 10th of March 1995. The exercise took place in the areas of Trøndelag and Nordmøre here in Norway. Trondheim served as the exercise base, and the city was greatly influenced by the military activities. Much of the exercise administration was accommodated inside the town limits, and military activity, both by vehicles and personnel, was quite noticeable throughout the exercise. Most of the civilian population were given comprehensive information prior to the start of the exercise, by means of letters and through the media. Participants spent approximately $200,000 per day, and most overnight facilities were fully booked. Traffic problems were anticipated but did not occur. The armed forces arranged a day of presentation with parades and weapon and tank demonstrations. Between 10 to 15,000 people visited these arrangements. Just under 20,000 Norwegian and Allied soldiers participated in the exercise. For 10 days they were trained in mutual cooperation and modern warfare. Norway has appointed the exercise area to expose the foreign armed forces to adverse weather conditions, and because Norway could offer a variety of terrain difficult to find in any other location. The aim of Strong Resolve 95 was for NATO to exercise joint operations and at the same time demonstrate its will and military potential for crisis management of a realistic conflict between two neighbouring countries. This was also the first NATO exercise after restructuring to shorten and simplify the chain of command. Commander Allied Forces Northern Europe, Vice Admiral Bjørnar Kipsgaard, stressed the importance of demonstrating political will and military ability in the defence of Norway in times when most of the defence budgets of the member nations are being cut. It is vitally important for Norway to nurture its close cooperation with the United States and other allied member nations and demonstrate that the country is still a strong and interested partner in Western Europe.
What we see in this exercise is a demonstration of the operating procedures and doctrine that NATO has developed over the last 40 years. And we're seeing that now in a new environment where we have from a multinational joint task force that is working from a naval platform, the Mount Whitney, an ace mobile force land on the land, and both of those forces have joined up and worked together.
Cooperation between NATO member nations depends upon good communication across linguistic and national borders. And it's not only the leaders that must communicate. Soldiers too, through all ranks, must be trained in the spirit of teamwork throughout the alliance.
Well, there is a small difference. They are professional soldiers, you know, so they have a slightly different attitude than us Norwegian refresher trainees. I guess we're a bit more cool about things, but these guys are more serious.
It's also important to exercise mobilization forces at regular intervals. Strong Resolve 95 comprised some 8,000 Norwegian Army personnel, of whom the so-called Trøndelag Brigade constituted the major part by contributing some 5,500 personnel. In addition, approximately 1,200 Home Guard soldiers participated. Our allies provided British, US, Dutch, German and Italian battalions, a total of some 10,000 soldiers. In the air, several hundred fighter aircraft and a large number of helicopters participated. In addition, some 100 naval vessels joined the exercise. This was the first time the Telemark Battalion exercised together with its allies in AMFL, which are some of the first combat units to be employed in an armoured conflict. Called the Fire Corps, it's a multinational brigade-size unit equipped with conventional weapons. The great assets of the AMFL are that it can be rapidly redeployed, and that it's trained for operations ranging from hot desert climates in southern Turkey to ice-cold weather conditions in northern Norway.
Well, we're Air Mobile Forces Land. We've been to Norway a couple of times now, and our main role is to strengthen positions all around the world, okay, instead of NATO. NATO peacekeeping forces as well.
The reduction of injuries has a very high priority within all NATO camps. And in spite of Strong Resolve 95 being a large-scale and very demanding exercise involving more than 7,000 vehicles, no exercise-affiliated fatal injury was encountered. However, Norway isn't the easiest place for running exercises.
Norway gives us quite demanding training. There's a few problems in Norway. First of all, the physical size of the hills are much bigger than we're used to, and your weather as well is very changeable and very severe conditions. In the snowstorms, it makes it very difficult to fly tactically in the weather, and also recover to a base which has got a very icy runway, and to try and land in a snowstorm is difficult. Also, uniquely out here, you've got a lot of high wires which are strung around that we're not used to. So all these things give us some very demanding training.
AMF also brought in a very modern and well-equipped indigenous German field hospital. It included 6 surgeons who performed surgery in a small operating theatre that could be placed inside 2 containers, relocated and in operation within a day. The unit offered its services on a small scale to civilian inhabitants at any time that the number of military patients did not absorb full unit capacity. The Strong Resolve 95 background scenario was as follows. Norway was divided into 2 separate nations. To the north was Whiteland, a non-democratic nation dominated by great economic problems. To the south was Greenland, a Western-oriented democracy with great natural resources. Even if the border had been recognized by the UN, Whiteland claimed her historical rights to a coastal area in Greenland, rich in minerals, fish and oil. Whiteland had conducted large-scale exercises along her borders to Greenland. Greenland succeeds in having the UN condemn the aggressive attitude of Whiteland, and apart from humanitarian assistance, a trade embargo is introduced. North Atlantic Council supports the UN resolution by military means and promises to protect the territory of Greenland.
To understand that there are many uncertainties out there, and that NATO today and tomorrow has to be prepared for a much broader range of contingencies than we were in the past. All the way from peace support operations at the low end of the conflict spectrum to Article 5 collective defense operations at the high end.
Though Strong Resolve 95 was mainly a free play type exercise, it was founded on operations plans of the field commanders, coordinated with the exercise directing staff who marked out the courses of action. Whiteland forces were mostly Norwegians, while Greenland forces were units from the other NATO nations. It all started outside Scotland, where Greenland Maritime Forces had rendezvoused for briefing and coordination of joint operations. The task group moved in the direction of Norway, conducting anti-submarine warfare. From deployment bases in Greenland, some 350 NATO aircraft familiarized themselves with the Norwegian topography and patrolled the borders with Whiteland. AMF forces arrived at Varnes Air Station as early as the 15th of February to prepare the landing of some 5,000 soldiers. The land operations were subsequently divided into 6 phases. The crisis was a fait accompli during Phase 1. The AMF forces arrived in Phase 2. They familiarized themselves with the area and conducted joint exercises with Greenland indigenous forces, informed civilian society, and warned the population to expect an enemy invasion. Furthermore, their presence demonstrated strength and would deter Whiteland from aggression. Whiteland was not so easily deterred and attacked. AMF forces were inadequate to counter the aggression and had to withdraw in expectation of seaborne reinforcements. Control of coastal areas was attempted, pending arrival of Allied reinforcements, and the mission of the air forces was to gain air superiority to secure the arrival of land forces. This phase was called Strong Resolve Part 1. During Strong Resolve Part 2, Greenland forces conducted defensive operations with regained strength while preparing offensive operations. They'd attack along two different axes, to the north and south, to force Whiteland into a defensive posture. Whiteland, including the Norwegian Trøndelag Brigade, operated successfully during this phase and demonstrated great mobility, flexibility, and ability to improvise in pressure situations. At the same time, Greenland forces secured the coastline and continued ASW and surface operations. The air forces had 4 goals: to defend Greenland against enemy air attacks and gain air supremacy, to assist naval forces in keeping open the harbours and sea passages, to penetrate deeply into Whiteland territory and attack her command, control and communication facilities and her offensive air bases, and to participate in the joint effort to force back Whiteland land forces, attack enemy military units and installations, and isolate the combat area behind enemy lines. A British Harrier fighter bomber is being refueled in the air. This aircraft can control the direction of its engine jet blast, dropping forward airspeed to 0, and take off and land without use of a runway. The aircraft is operated during night time, in pitch darkness, with pilots wearing special night vision goggles. The Harrier is also well known for its impressive role during Desert Storm in 1991 and contributed significantly to the victory. The Dutch forces were equipped with 2 Hawk and 1 Patriot anti-aircraft missile batteries. The batteries are very mobile and can be redeployed and in operation in a new location within a day. During Desert Storm, the American-made Patriot missile, traveling at 5,000 kilometers an hour, demonstrated its capability against not only other aircraft, but also Iraqi Scuds, thereby defending Israel against missile attacks. The Patriot can locate 90 targets at any one time and is essentially more efficient than the Hawk. The objective of the last phase of the exercise was to re-establish the border between the 2 countries following withdrawal of the armed forces. The exercise proved very valuable and troop performance impressed NATO top executives, and the new command structure functioned as intended. Some delays were detected, however. For example, a number of US naval units arrived several days behind schedule. This would not have happened in a wartime situation, but was caused by mandatory peacetime considerations regarding personnel and property. Information to the outside world was provided by the Allied Press and Information Centre, APIC. To achieve best possible media coverage, all exercise units assisted wholeheartedly in coordination of the APIC routines.
Welcome to this APIC. In the APIC we are advising military commanders how to deal with the press, and the main task of course is to serve the press itself. We try to make as many good arrangements as possible, and we also try to get the press out in the field where they can deal directly with the troops and the commanders and see some of the action.
A period of intense APIC activities followed a parachute accident where fortunately nobody suffered serious injuries. Thanks to a British naval vessel, 11 Norwegian fishermen were rescued when their vessels sank.
Well, I don't know how the Coast Guard works around here. I know you've got Coast Guard based along this coast. If we hadn't been there, I don't know how long it would have taken them to get to the scene to winch them up, but it would have been dark by the time they'd arrived, so it would have been harder for them to find them. But they were very lucky that we were only 5 miles away.
Because of this incident and the open lines policy practiced by the armed forces to the civilian population, the exercise was by and large treated in a positive and informative manner by the media. Strong Resolve 95 turned out to be an exercise that everybody could be proud of. Norway proved once more to be a well-qualified organizer of exercises, and US executives in particular appreciated the warm welcome they were given by the Norwegian people, as well as the understanding of a large-scale military exercise that was demonstrated.